there was such an emphasis on Carl being the caregiver and the caretaker because, again, you're looking at a family with a lot of damage, a lot of issues, a lot of problems. And the one thing that brought that family together was music, unlike anything else.
How would you explain the, as we start focusing on Carl, how would you explain the different roles that Brian, Dennis, and Carl played in that household?
Brian was the eldest son, the golden child. He displayed a gift for music very early on. And I think Murray saw Brian as the as sort of the heir to the family business of making music. Dennis, of course, was the middle child, and when families with two sons, you've got the heir and the spare. And I always regarded Dennis as sort of the patron saint of second-born sons. He and Jack Kennedy. The attention that they don't get becomes the freedom that the other children don't get. And they usually get to indulge themselves. Excuse me. And in Dennis's case, he indulged himself greatly. But he was very talented, and people didn't realize how talented he was until as Brian receded into illness. Like Carl, Dennis started picking up some of the songwriting reins and did a wonderful job. With Carl, I think you had someone whose gifts were, I don't know if I could call them equal to Brian's. I certainly couldn't call them equal to Brian's. But I would say greater than anyone else in the band, absent Brian. And he was a quick study, and everything he did, every time he was asked to do a job, he did it. He took on every detail they threw at him. And that's the reason that when I set out to write this biography, and I hesitate to call it a biography, it's more of a musical analysis. And boy, do I get in trouble for not putting that on the cover. But Carl Wilson presents some very unique problems to someone who is going to chronicle his life. Because as a musician, as an artist, so much of what he did has gotten overlooked in the past or credited to other people. And one of the things that I was so grateful for, thanks to David Beard at Endless Summer Quarterly, Craig Slowinski, the wonderful historian, for years there's been this myth going out that the Beach Boys basically played the songs that Brian recorded in the studio at the Wrecking Crew. And that isn't true. That up until Pet Sounds, that's Carl Wilson. And he's not only doing those wonderful, tasteful solos, he was very much a pioneering guitar player coming out of the surf guitar era. And if you notice, it's Carl's choice of guitar that defines those first two eras of the Beach Boys up to what we refer to as the Smile era. And his production work, particularly in the wake of Wild Honey and Friends, the final Capitol albums, particularly on the albums that basically brought them back to life, which is the Brother Reprise years, which is Sunflower, Surf's Up, Carl and the Passions, and of course Holland. Because what they did was they went from the heights to the depths, and then they came back and reclaimed a whole new audience. And I was very fortunate to have seen a lot of those shows. That was during my musical coming of age. And I was able to see so many of those shows during that period. And those records were amazing records. I know Rolling Stone said of Sunflower when it came out, this is a record that can finally stand with Sunflower. And most of that was Carl. Again, he had all the Beach Boys there, and they were a lot more talented than people have given him credit for over the years. In large part because, you know, the paper trails have been manipulated, mostly because at the time those paper trails were made basically to keep the record companies away from the artists so that they could create. And so they were more of a smokescreen to prevent interference. But over the years, Carl's contributions, particularly his musical contributions, have been obscure.